The night was thick with heat, the air over Karsaz Road pressing down like a storm waiting to break. Karachi never truly slept, but here, beyond the city's neon-lit frenzy, the darkness felt different, watchful. The dim glow of flickering streetlights barely cut through the shadows, the broken asphalt stretching ahead like a void. For decades, this road had been cursed. Whispers spread through Karachi about the Churail of Karsaz, a blood-stained bride who appeared before certain travelers, her presence an omen of doom. Some swore they had seen her, standing in the road, her hollow eyes staring into their souls. Others spoke of eerie whispers, of the air turning ice-cold before their cars veered off the road, as if an unseen force had taken hold of the wheel. But she did not appear to everyone. The question was, why? Recently, the accidents had increased. Motorists found dead in their crashed vehicles, their faces frozen in terror. Something had changed, her rage had grown, and Sikandar Shah, the last Rakwal, had come to find out why. Decades ago, on this very road, Naila and her groom had driven home after their wedding, the city lights shrinking behind them, but she had learned something she was never meant to know. Her husband had never loved her. He had married her for wealth. Her dowry was the true prize. The accident that followed was no accident at all. He had planned it, knowing the impact would kill her instantly while he escaped, presumed dead in the fiery wreckage. But the plan had flaws. Though Naila's body was found, his remains never were. The whispers started soon after. Some claimed he had fled the country, taking the fortune he had stolen. And Naila, she had become something more than a spirit, something vengeful. Her grief had twisted into rage, her presence drawn to those whose hands, like her husband's, bore the stain of greed and cruelty. Knowing the origins of her restless ghost, Sikandar prepared for the encounter. He drove a jeep sprinkled with holy Zamzam water and protective charms hanging from the mirror. But Sikandar knew the risk. He knew these would not save him if he was not careful. Unlike other spirits he had encountered, the Churail of Karsaz did not appear to everyone. She was selective, elusive, and vengeful, choosing her victims with purpose. There was no guarantee she would reveal herself to him. If she did not see him as guilty, as someone who had wronged the innocent, then she would ignore him completely. And so, Sikandar had to draw her out, to make her believe he was the kind of man she sought justice against. Only then would she come. If he wanted to put Naila's spirit to rest, he would have to convince her to listen. He prepared meticulously, knowing that simply driving down Karsaz Road would not be enough. He left his talismans hidden, making sure he appeared vulnerable. He removed any visible protection, ensuring the Churail wouldn't sense he was a Rakwal. He dressed in rich fabrics, mimicking the kind of man she had once trusted, the kind who had betrayed her. He borrowed a luxurious jeep, polished and gleaming under the city's dim glow, a stark contrast to his usual rugged vehicle. As he gripped the steering wheel, his stomach tightened. This was a dangerous gamble. He was inviting her wrath, letting her believe he was just another man who could be punished. Would she see through it, or would she drag him into the abyss, believing his deception to be the truth? Sikandar drove down Karsaz Road deep into the night, when the city's noise faded into an unsettling stillness. He did not simply wait for her. He called to her. With the windows rolled down, he whispered her name under his breath, weaving it into the night air like an invocation.
Naila, I know your pain.
The wind shifted.
Naila, I know what was taken from you.
The streetlights flickered, the temperature plummeted. He knew she was listening, and so he taunted fate.
Naila, what justice is there if your story is forgotten?
Silence. Karsaz Road stretched ahead, empty. The air was unnaturally cold, a stark contrast to the usual humid Karachi night. Sikandar's grip tightened on the wheel. Then, the engine of his jeep stuttered. The air grew thick, pressing against his chest. The distant rustling of the trees ceased, as if the very world held its breath. A sweet, overpowering scent filled the air. Roses, their fragrance sickly and wrong. Then, at the very edge of his vision, she appeared. A figure in a blood-stained bridal dress, the lace of her veil fluttering though there was no wind. Her feet twisted back, her hollow, glowing eyes locked onto Sikandar's, and when she raised her hand, her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with a grief so deep it had rotted into rage. Sikandar's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. She had come.
Betrayal, justice, blood for blood.
Sikandar stepped out of the jeep, his enchanted talwar at his side.
Naylor, I know your story. I know what was done to you, but this path will not bring you peace.
Her form blurred. A sudden gust of wind slammed into him, throwing him back against the jeep. The whispers grew into screams, the ground beneath him shaking.
He lied. He left me. They must pay.
Shadows coiled around Sikandar's limbs, tightening like chains. His vision darkened, the world tilting. She was pulling him into her nightmare. Through the haze, he gripped his talwar, the metal pulsating with energy. With a swift, desperate strike, he cut through the shadows. A burst of light erupted, forcing them to retreat. Panting, he faced her once more. Her veil had lifted. She was hauntingly beautiful, but her face bore the agony of betrayal.
You don't want vengeance, Naylor. You want the truth to be known. Let me help you.
For the first time, she hesitated. The air around them stilled. Then, she raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the city.
My blood. It remains. They keep what is mine.
Sikandar followed the clues she had given him, uncovering the hidden truth. The groom's family had buried the crime, ensuring that no one ever knew of their ancestors' betrayal. They still possessed the stolen dowry, tainted by a heinous crime, locked away in their estate. Confronting the groom's great-grandson, Sikandar forced him to acknowledge the truth. Under the weight of undeniable evidence, the family had no choice but to return the dowry to Naila's surviving relatives. A small act of justice, but justice, nonetheless. That night, Sikandar returned to Karsaz Road, placing the stolen wealth and a letter detailing the truth at the very spot where Naila had died. She appeared once more, but this time, her presence was softer, her eyes no longer hollow.
Justice is served.
Her form began to fade, her rage no longer anchoring her to the mortal world. But before vanishing entirely, she placed one final condition. She would not disappear forever. From now on, she would only appear to those who demanded unjust dowries, who mistreated their wives, who used marriage as a means of greed. As Sikandar picked up a single rose left behind in her place, he felt a faint energy coursing through it. Though it seemed like a simple flower, he knew better. This was a gift, a token of gratitude, imbued with something beyond mortal understanding. Perhaps one day, it would serve him when he needed it most. As the first light of dawn spread over Karachi, Sikandar drove away from Karsaz Road. The legend of the Churail was not erased, but it had changed, and so his journey continued, a lone seeker of truth, venturing into the shadows of the past, where myths and justice intertwined.
Please like, share, subscribe.